Hello and welcome to Cracked Open, a podcast guiding you on your journey to becoming a vessel of unconditional love. This is your host, Beck Milonas, High Priestess, Channel, and Activator. Join me on this series as I share reflections, insights, and channel transmissions from my journey of walking the initiation path. Each episode is a unique transmission containing supportive frequencies to facilitate the deepest healing, activation, and reconnection with your soul. I invite you to open your mind and set the intention to receive this episode into your heart space. Let's go. Hello, beautiful souls, and welcome back to another episode of Cracked Open, a podcast guiding you to becoming a vessel of unconditional love. I have a very special treat for all of you today. With me, I have Geeia Ariati, a conscious business consultant, master teacher of the Purity of Isis Mystery School, and she helps women and men. You help men too, right? People, humans, more women. Mostly women, become embodied in their dharmic path and build a life from that remembrance. We just had a little beautiful drop in. We're on the same land, which is really exciting for me, because we're both like anchoring all these juicy codes here and just building something great. So I'm excited to talk to this queen and just feel her out, and this is our first proper conversation, so we don't know where this is going to go, but we did create a beautiful container for activation. This woman brings a lot of like very potent energy in the mystery spaces, so let's see. Open your heart if you would like to receive. No pressure if you don't, like not fucking imposing shit on anyone, but all open if you're ready to receive what is in your highest. Welcome, beautiful soul. Welcome, welcome, and thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for feeling the resonance and the connection, the remembrance. It's been really nice actually having our first sort of drop-in connection point and seeing what is here to be birthed on this land in the same spaces, places, seeing similar visions. So very curious in relation to talking about the priestess path, the goddess path, the initiation path, because for me it's been quite a challenge to find many that have had such not just such a strong initiation path, but also cognitively understand and communicate from a place of embodiment. So I think that's what I'm excited about, to be here and sort of drop in and share different perspectives and support others to deeply remember and open to more of their heart space.
Yeah, and I completely could not agree more with there's a lot of people on the path, but there's not a lot of people who can communicate with like the nuance and the understanding of this is what I'm going through and this is what happened. And I feel this ascension journey, it can be very confusing if you don't have that understanding of what actually is fucking happening to me. What am I going through? What is this descent process? How many gates do I have to go through? What is this all for, right? Like, it's only now in the past couple of years that I've really started to understand what was happening and why it was happening. And now that I'm here, I'm like, oh, it makes sense. So I would love to ask, because it's always a great question, how and when this all opened for you, and when did you have this remembrance or understanding or knowing that this is where you're here to play and walk and guide and teach and be in this incarnation?
Yeah, beautiful. So I think that for most people, and like most people, I was initiated unconsciously through the path of basically my body giving up on me. And I was in an unhealthy marriage, both running from complete karmic wounding, inability to communicate, to very polarizing. You can see it now. One was very much from the descended elements of matter to the higher, angelic consciousness within myself. And so this empath narcissistic dynamic of toxicity was created, and my body was shutting down. I had 5 kids under 5 that I was looking after. I was running a makeup artistry business, as well as doing the administration for his mining. And I got so sick, and I ended up starting to cough up blood. And that was when I was coughing up blood, and I was going to doctors and trying to get tests, and what I now know as massively accelerated ascension symptoms were coming through. And so my tests were always fine. I did find closer to the end of it, when I you know, I had one of those pivotal kind of moments where God spoke to me and was like, if you don't leave this relationship, you're going to die. And it was like, you won't be a mother for your kids. So, you know, like you've got to make a choice. And I was still too scared. Honestly, I was still too scared. So what did I do? I created a catalyst in my life, like most of us. I met someone and brought in I guess, a romantic interest outside of the marriage to break and cut and destroy it as quickly as I possibly could, because I wasn't strong enough. I was very much in my victimized feminine, and so that pathway was, I guess, the beginning of like really understanding. Before that, I was doing a little bit of personal development and I grew up very spiritually, but that was the first real initiation of trust God over, because even though I created the chaos, I was still hearing. And that's what was so confusing, was I was hearing messages and I knew I was being guided to something, but I was being guided to the things that I needed to create the fuckery that I wasn't willing to actually choose from a place of consciousness, because I didn't have the capacity. So I thoroughly destroyed my life publicly. I was a bit of a public figure in a small town, and so my marriage and my mental health and everything crumbled. And I went through a schizophrenic episode and ended up in a mild psychosis. And my information was coming in, and I was getting intuitive downloads and visions and all these things. And I had no mentor and no one to support me to understand what was happening. And that, I guess, was the pathway into the journey. That was my heart chakra really going through the process of awakening, purifying, and coming back to self-love, which took quite a few years, and then on to the next one, and then on to the next one. When I realized purpose, I think I've always had a really strong purpose. I've known I was here for purpose. Always had big dreams, always thought I was going to be famous one day and I'm going to impact people's lives. But I didn't think, because I grew up spiritually, I was like so resistant to spirituality, and just looking around, and I still see it, but I didn't understand it, was from that child's perspective. I was like, people in the spiritual community aren't healed. They're just doing the same thing. Like, I was really like, I'm not going to do that. They're not happy. They might talk it, but they're not. And I watched my mum, like, with illness and autoimmune, and my family, and I was like, I'd rather be in the world and be powerful. And so it was there. And then memories, I guess, started to change what that looked like. And, you know, I resisted it like most priestesses. I was like, fuck no, I'm not doing that. Hells no, I'm not that. And I guess the major path was through a mushroom ceremony. And I asked, what is my purpose? What are all my gifts and abilities? Show me my past lives. And it was a full Kundalini awakening, opening to light language, recognizing I could channel with infinite intelligence, brought through a whole modality, couldn't speak English. And that was the real, like, okay, what the fuck, who are you moment. And from there, it's been guidance to go here, go here, go here, go here, go here. Don't listen out there. Everything's a distortion. Everything you think is a distortion. What's the actual truth? You got to find it by coming back, coming back, coming back. So that's sort of a very short nutshell.
Just in a nutshell. It's always like that, huh? Thank you for sharing that. I can resonate with a lot of, how we create these pressure points for us, or we can't like see the thing, so we create it out there, so we're like forced to fucking do something about it. So it's so interesting how we self-sabotage but also self materialize in that way, right? So I can completely relate, and your awakening or your coming to your path and your gifts sounds exactly like mine, like just this sudden boom, no teachers, no one to show me, no fucking idea what was going on, kind of schizophrenic, like what's happening. It's something is coming in around truth, which is really interesting. It's this thread, this line that I'm walking. So around this like inner authority, and I go within for my answers, and that's the same. Like I talk to God, and it's my answers always from within. I'm curious your perception of like how we discern what is truth, what is God, what is love, and what is, I want to say, mimicry or distortion that's still coming from within, but it's still distortion, right? Because
Mhm.
yeah, I mean, you would know, I literally my whole fucking life is like, go here, do this. Like I have this inner knowing that just knows shit and just leads me, and like that's why I'm here where I am. Like it's like literally you're gonna move into this place, it's gonna arrive, it's gonna be through these people, blah blah blah. Reach out to this beautiful queen, get her on the pot, like that's what that's what my life is like. But at times there is this questioning of like, okay, I've seen it tested and tested and tested and tested and accurate and accurate and accurate from the feedback of what is happening. But how would someone know what and discern what is that truth versus what is mimicry? Because sometimes there have been things that, for instance, I've heard and the details have been off. Like, oh, you're going to get reduced rent because the septic's not going to work. And the rent was reduced, so I was right, but the septic was fine. So like that discernment piece, I'm just curious. Yeah, riff on that for me, if it vibes.
Yeah, I love it because, I mean, we could say in truth, everything is a message from God, even if it does come through distortion. And when I say that, I mean, one of the things that I teach in the mystery schools is God will speak to you how you will listen. And if that's through a distorted lens, if that's through a distorted message and you're going to listen to it, then that's the way of the path until you're willing to hear the truth. Now, when I look at the difference between distortion and distorted guided messages or higher selves or descended or entities or councils or whatever, either way, it's going to eventually take you to the path, right? It's going to give you an experience. The experience is either going to be catalytic and you're going to see shadow aspects of yourself, or you can move through the path with a level of neutrality, acceptance, presence, knowing, no attachment, and just move with each step. And the difference is that for me, how I could explain it to as many different people as possible is that the message of God doesn't have fear. It doesn't have emotionality. It doesn't have a point of view or a perspective. It kind of just says things as it is and in the place of truth. So if there's a message coming through and there's like a fear and an emotional expression to it, it's coming from some perspective through the identity and through the separate mind. When I directly channel, there's such a neutral 0 point to the language that truth cannot be denied by anyone, right? So that truth, when we talk about that truth in this moment, I know, my dog will express as well, like that truth is the truth. It's when we put my truth, your truth, and our entity or our separate mind, ego's truth onto the truth. That's when it becomes a tug of war, push and pull, and emotional experience that we then have to experience to find and to come back to that inner authority.
Beautiful. I love that answer. And I love how you said that God works through everything, even the things that are like a bit shitty, because I've had that experience many times, that's for sure. I'm getting guided to ask you about, I think it was a YouTube, when I was like, before I invited you on, I was just going through some of your content and there was this beautiful thing you were talking about the feminine descending, and the masculine, you know what I feel like you're gonna know exactly what I'm talking about. The two paths, right? And like the God Kings having to like now descend through the. I want you to riff on that because I'm fucking butchering it, but you know exactly what I'm talking about. I was like, she's gonna talk about that. I feel like she needs to bring that in because I feel the reason why is because there's going to be a lot of people on this list that listen to this that would resonate with that because they're walking that path without knowing. So for me personally, and this is what I want to share, I definitely went on the Sophianic descent path to come back up, and my whole body's like fucking chills and shit as I'm saying this. Like I was a fallen descended, I descended. I fallen angel descended. That was my path. I've been walking it into redemption, back into Eden. And now it's not like I'm here, I'm done, but it's like I've reached that level of redemption and now I'm walking the light, right? But I feel this concept of the direction in which we're going and how that all comes back into this oneness. Like I just love to riff on that and see what comes through.
Yeah, there is an ascended path or a descended path. And the ascended path is basically no different to the descended. It's just a directional reverse engineering of understanding the psyche. So the ascended path will see a block or a distortion or a manipulation or an like an untruth, and that will be the point of awareness, and it will recognize that that's not the truth, to move through the fear and to kind of like envelope through it to open to the frequency, the light, the information. Whereas the descended path, it's you're not moving towards the light, you're actually moving towards the death point, the fallen. So you keep falling into the subconscious. You keep moving into the lack of information. So if we can see it as a bandwidth, one path you're actually going from this and you're further expanding your bandwidth. When you're descending, you're actually starting from a bandwidth and you're narrowing it to a 0 point where you have no bandwidth. So you actually can't hear God. By the time you get down to that death point, there's no message from God. It is only the only way to get back to God is to actually basically
Die.
completely collapse and die, because there's nothing left, right? There's no information left. And information is energy, life force, frequency, however you want to see it. So the thing that's interesting is it's equal male to female. However, there is, I guess, a more archetypal awareness that the history that we've walked is that the gods that created the more patriarchal experience, many of the masculine gods have ran a path that now they actually have to um, move into the full dissension of themselves to ascend up into the light of God and illumination. And you could say that's why we're going into this level of global earthly awareness. Is it's only going to get worse, because that's the pathway that as a collective we've chosen. Is it started up here and we've gone do 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 do, and it has to collapse in on itself. So a lot of the I guess reincarnated gods are going through that pathway, whereas the goddess have chosen, they kind of were already suppressed back then. And they've gone through more of a reclaiming and a rise. So it's not always based on male and female, but if we look at like the Anunnaki and those that have remembrance from specific timelines, it is predominantly more women that are ascending and men that are descending to create a balance point in
Yeah.
our frequency and our collective mind.
It's interesting because it's like it was for me, it was like a descent into myself to die to that old part that was already the fallen, but then it's like this Sophia comes back into the full light, right? I love that mystery journey. Like it's just juicy, juicy, juicy. This brings me to what we were kind of like riffing on when we got on, and in the context of the masculine at the moment going through like death after death after death, and not to bring anyone's name or faces or anything to this, but I just see in the men that are around me that I'm encountering, friends, lovers, whatever, I'm seeing this like they're still needing to be handed hard lessons, or like that's the path that they're still very much walking, like the rude awakenings, where I kind of feel more women who have been on this path for maybe a little bit longer or doing this work, we're done. We're like, we're fucking done. I'm done dying. I'm done having my head handed to me. I'm like done learning through pain. Like, let me just orgasm through my existence now, because that's where I'm fucking at. And that's where I'm at. So if you're not there yet, ladies, like you can get there, right? But yeah, just talk to me about this and what you're noticing. And do you think it has to do with this part that we were just talking about, like these fallen gods or whatever that need to go through that, like the stripping back process to come back to innocence, or whatever, whatever perspective that falls under?
Yeah, I love that. I see that as a, I mean, if we look at collectively as well, because of the way we are sitting at this present moment, it is more acceptable for women to be on the path of spirituality. It's starting to shift a little bit more in this last probably 18 months. I've seen a lot more men stepping into the path. But based on just the collective environment, it's more acceptable to have emotions and to be spiritual and all of those different things and communicate from that place without being, so woo-woo and crazy and delusional. There is already an openness and a support for women in that way. So we have gotten to that point though because we, as a collective, the women have mostly decided, I don't actually want to keep doing it through hard. I don't want to keep going into the mud. I realize I actually have a choice and I'm a sovereign being and I can choose my awareness, my learnings, my initiation through the yumminess and the orgasm and the samesies is almost. So what I'm seeing is women are starting to go, actually, I don't want to be in polarizing relationships. I don't want to have someone who's going to be like poking in all my wounds and going, you're wrong, this is not good enough, and pulling all of it up for that inner work to happen. It's like, actually, I'd rather have a conversation like this where we go, oh, okay, I can see I've still got something there that I need to work on because I can do it that way. And it's much more easeful on my nervous system, kinder on my heart, gentler on my experience. And I would much rather experience life through that than the way that I have. I've done enough. I've got enough information. Yes, that works. But this also works. And I'd much rather walk this path. Whereas what's happening for the men based on their initiations is that they're almost having to be like completely broken to break down that ego construct and this false illusion of strength, this false illusion of masculinity, this, delusional element that, they need to be like overly disciplined and overly restrictive and overly aggressive to get things done, that forcing nature. And because there's so much force to have moved through and false power, there's this, all right, well, now you've got to experience having that stripped back and taken away, which is basically continually being emasculated over and over and over and over. And when you're in the presence of a woman and that has done the work and has an awareness of both sides and can actually find a neutrality point, that's fucking hard because that brings up the information they haven't yet come to terms with within themselves, which is that false identity of what it is to be a man, that false identity of leadership, that false identity of the God. You have to completely collapse it before you can actually be a man of God, before you can walk the line of truth, before you can be a speaker of the word and lead. Because leadership really, and I know that, and I would love to hear your perspective of this, is women are like, I want a man who can lead. And I absolutely have wanted that until I remember my inner authority. And then I'm like, no, I want a man who's got his own inner authority and can lead himself. I lead myself. I can be a woman. He can be a man. And it's not I'm leading. It's not my channel's better. It's not this is right, this is wrong. It's I know what I know. You know what you know. And we walk. And I think that's challenging.
It is challenging. I see it a little bit like I see that the woman is the one that is connected like that way and the man's connected this way. But this is everyone has different quadrants, configurations, whatever. I know in me and where I'm at, like what I am is boom, and I need the man to be the bottom, right? So for me, it looks like I get the vision of we're gonna build this fucking crystalline whatever temple, and then my man is like, this is the land, this is where these are the bricks, like this is what we're gonna do, this is how we fucking do it. However, I think a lot of us, and I'm speaking for myself, and this has been my journey, been waiting and waiting and waiting for my divine fucking masculine to come, and I can't do this without him. And now I'm like, I'm gonna fucking go do a trade and learn because we gotta be able to also get into that masculine and, like you said, lead. And Aries energy at the moment is like lighting a fire up my ass, especially this morning around like work and purpose and You can't just like be all up here and like calling it in. Like you got to fucking do the shit, right? So that is the inner authority. So I agree. I feel you. Um,
Oh,
yeah.
yeah, I've definitely got some more on that. I agree with you completely. So, biologically, just from the makeup of a woman and the makeup of a man, we are more intuitive. We are more connected to spirit. And when it comes to true neutrality or inner, masculine, feminine, above, below, inner, outer, that's our 0 point connection in the center of our being, right? But as a woman, you're always going to have a stronger perspective of spirit
Yep.
and a more intuitive body, more feelings. That's hormonal. You can't actually change your physical biology.
Yeah.
And so that's what we're, I guess, being guided is to reconcile that inner union so that we can be what it is to be biologically woman and to let the man be biologically man. But at the moment,
Mm.
men are being biologically men and they're not really having that inner authority that helps them to, yeah, be that presence for women.
Yeah, and it's also I'm gonna fire some shots. Not speak about anyone specific, but having this experience of men who are like, I want a feminine woman. They're using these terms now. I want this feminine woman who's soft and can submit. And can you submit? And can you submit? And it's like, yeah, I can fucking submit if you create safety, if you actually can show me that you can hold a container. So they just accept or expect because they're in their masculine and their power. I expect you to be able to handle my dominance, but not then creating safety for that dominance. And I've had some interesting experiences around that one. And I'm like, I'm submissive AF when it's like appropriate. And I'm like a soft squish. Like I'm a Pisces. I'm like literally born to melt and let you tell me what to do. Like I love that shit. But if you cannot hold, like if you've shown me my body's not safe, my pussy's not opening, like why am I supposed to submit to a man that doesn't create safety? So it's this yeah, like this dance of leadership is like, yes, we're here to allow ourselves to be led and to lead, and sometimes you lead and sometimes they lead, and there's this dance, but there has to be also like I am not giving up my sovereignty. I'm not giving up my strength. I'm not giving up what my body and my inner wisdom and my pussy is telling me. My intuition is telling me this person cannot fucking actually lead. So don't just submit because they're a man and you're supposed to submit to a man, like so this stuff I'm noticing because it's interesting even on something like maths. I watch maths sometimes just to remind myself how far I've come, but like you'll see people using buzzwords like I'm really like traditional and I want like I'm very masculine and I want to and it's like they're just using these fucking terms and it's still toxic. It's not empowering. It's not traditional. It's like I expect a woman to be weak, basically, is what submissive is. And I don't believe submission is weakness. I believe submission is like fucking trust and it's vulnerability. And in that is strength. You're nodding a lot. I'm going to let you talk. I'm just going on a bit of a
Oh,
rant.
I completely agree that submission, if you can submit fully to God within yourself, then that acknowledgement of what to be in each present moment creates safety and trust. And
Mm,
to have I have trialed and errored a lot of this, right? Because
mhm.
it's obviously been a big part of my own journey. But in the awareness of the priestess path and assisting men, I do assist them to initiate their heart chakra. That's pretty much the only part I pop in and I'm like, I'll hold your heart for a while until you can open it
Yeah.
and it'll be crystalline. And then you go on your path, right? So that through that journey, I've, I guess, placed myself in a lot of different polarizing experiences to understand that, yeah, I could submit and submit, but eventually God says you can't submit to this person because they don't have good intentions for you. They're not
Yeah.
coming from a place of purity, and it doesn't matter how open and purified, eventually your field is going to be affected and have distortions enter and different things because you're not being honest and with the full awareness. You have this awareness because you need to make choices that are aligned to where certain presence is appropriate. We don't bring, you can be completely present here and we can have our facilitator communication sisterly conversation, but right now in presence, we're not bringing our like melty sexual, like divine frequencies.
Mm.
But it doesn't mean that we're denying them or rejecting them. It just means right now, this present moment is called for this. And the present moment between man and woman to co-create that experience, it it cannot be one. I've tried so many times and I've always fallen because I
Yeah.
can't hold it for both people long enough, maybe for periods. And I can, and it opens and there's this amazing awakening, but it's exhausting on my mind, body, and soul and spirit. But it does give them that opportunity. And then it's like eventually I have to say, yeah, I've awoken an experience or a possibility and it was co-created. Even that, it's like hard to say because it's like, well, if one person's holding the container, the man might be able to step into that safety, but as soon as you're not holding that container, that safety goes. And it's like, no, you need to be this within yourself, that inner authority. And
It
I
sounds,
honestly
sorry, no, no, keep going.
I honestly think that's why, and I was super surprised at this, that so many women are being more attracted to female partnerships at the moment
Mm.
because they're like, men just aren't going to meet my needs at the moment.
Yeah.
And it's either the women are going, okay, I'm going to be in a female-female connection,
Mm.
or they're going to have to recognize that they're holding a lot more space because realistically, with the truth and the awareness of everything, and I've keep testing, trialing, checking. Women are more evolved in
Mm.
that point of embodiment than men are. And that's
Yeah.
just the truth.
Yeah, interesting. It sounds what I was going to say, and it definitely, I could already know your answer, even though I don't know your answer, but I'm assuming your answer is that you too, being this on this priestess path, this initiator, you've had to initiate a lot of kings, or like you've called like they've just fucking kept because this is literally me, right? I've written books about it, one after the other, and they just don't step into the kinghood, and I'm like fucking hell. So then God removes them, and it's like literally I've just been this catalyst for men, and I've stopped that because I'm like I'm not doing this anymore. Like no, but is that? Do you think that's like? We all go through that as priestesses, or there's only some of us that hold that archetype that we're like literally here to fucking activate and catalyze these men that are here to do great things, and whether they step into it or not, like, because I'm tapped out of that. I don't want to do that no more. Like, I'm not fucking interested. But it sounds to me like you also have had to, have had to do that in some timelines.
Yeah, I have initiated many kings, many leaders that don't step up, and they
Yeah,
have to fall away and step away and
yeah,
later come back and go, I was afraid to stay in the space because you were reflecting all of your power, da 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 da, right? So same story over and over and over. Sometimes it's months, sometimes it's weeks, sometimes it's been years.
yeah.
Um, so with that, I guess when it comes to women that might hold more of the priestess archetypal energy, they're initiators, healers, and activators. So, depending on what other embodiments they're bringing in and what other lineage, connection, ancestral components, I would say that if you hold a royal bloodline, and you hold a royal connection and queen's codes, then yeah, you're probably initiating kings because you're like,
Uh,
where the fuck is mine?
yeah,
Are you,
so
are
true.
you it? Are you it? Are you it? No. Okay, keep going. Right. And then
These
it's like,
fucking jokers. Yeah.
and then it's like, okay, I'm going to claim my own kingship in
Hmm.
here and
Yeah.
the kingdom of heaven and
Yes.
God and all of that and become that embodied empire within myself, then it becomes more available. But the awareness is we've got a lot of tyrant kings at the moment. That's kind of just where they're at. And then when we look at, say, like healers that are more of the priestess, I find they might have more of the alchemist energy or the oracle energy, and so there's different, I guess, priestess lineages that hold different
Please go into. I
pathways.
feel like this is so interesting for my audience. Like, go into. Tell me all of it. Not all of it,
Initiation.
but yeah, I'd love to hear like the different. Yeah, so they can differentiate themselves. Because I'm like, oh, I
Yeah.
resonate with that and that and that. I don't like labels anymore because I'm a fucking Aquarius, like all Aquarius. And I'm like, I don't put me in a box, right? But I think it's really interesting to know that there are. You're not just a priestess. There's like so many different ways you can do this, skin this cat.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, that's a natural pathway of evolution is having a label, releasing the label, and then actually reclaiming the unique snowflake as well, which is like, oh, damn, I actually have to label myself. Otherwise, I can't communicate in the world. Um,
Yeah.
and there's, yeah, I would say for the priestess archetype, that someone who's resonating, activating, moving awareness of that. We have the more ascended priestess and the descended priestess in the form of like where they work from and where they receive. The Kundalini priestess is more of your temple arts, your sacred sexuality, using the body as the ancient mysteries with Eros and all of these different somatic body works, dance, martial arts even. So they do, that's this, the Kundalini priestess is that real physical
Yeah.
priestess. And they've actually got a very, usually quite a curvy body. They've got more hips and bum
I'm
and
here, babe. I'm right here. You're talking about me.
mermaid vibes, right? In these different, yeah, like there's the shamanic medicine woman kind of different energies. And then you've got the Christed priestess, and they are your angelic. They're actually quite lean most of the time, up and down, because they've got a really strong channel and conduit from those higher angelic frequencies, and tend to be a lot top heavy in they're receiving really strong mental interpretation of reality, quite mindy, want to understand all different dynamics, realities, intellectualize it. Often can confuse their intellectuality as like being too in your head, but it's actually a channel that's not fully, I guess, embodied and understood. They are definitely more communicators, speakers of the word. They have a slightly different authority with the rose codes, a little bit more connected to the crystalline heart. Not that we're not, and we can hold both, and we can go through an evolution of integrating both pathways or taking on both pathways for our own, development. So the priestess then turns into obviously a priestess, well, not obviously, depending on how much you understand about this, is the priestess once she knows her unique medicine and her mastery, and, is she stronger in her ability through her hands or through her word? Where does her frequency come out? Which portals? What chakra is more dominant? All of those mystery school understandings of which we only find through initiation, self-reflection, understanding, looking at different powerful points of maybe altered states of consciousness, all of these gathering of tools that happen. When she understands her mastery, she moves into the high priestess, which is a teaching element. So that high priestess pathway is helping to initiate other priestesses, helping them to see who they are, helping them to maybe choose their path, because often the priestess path keeps knocking and it gets louder and louder and louder because it's the path of devotion. And deeply, every single priestess wants to devote their life, not only to themselves, to their king or, their counterpart, but to God and to the collective all. So that devotion is so loud, it gets louder and louder and louder. That, and eventually, whether this incarnation or another, we have to step into that path of devotional listening, being, acting, participating with life from that lens. And then we can move up into other branches, but that's what I assist mostly women, is to recognize that they're a priestess and then to start that path, and then we move up the hierarchy of mind and information and integrate what is true for us and leave the rest.
Where does the oracle sit within that, would you say? Like what
Yeah,
archetype?
so I love that. So I usually say the conduit, the priestess, and the oracle are the ones
Yeah.
that come into the Purity of Isis mystery school.
Yeah.
So the oracle doesn't always sit with the priestess. It can sit in its own archetypal expression. And the conduit so the oracle is more perception, vision, future forecasting, information, visionary kind of receiving, a lot of information coming in, being understood, and then I guess, expelled or communicated out. The conduit receives from higher mind and brings it through and expresses it through language, mostly writing, sometimes paintings and things like that. And they can be, we can cross-pollinate lines, and we can have a little bit of this and a little bit of
Because
that.
you're saying, and
But
I'm like, literally every one of these, I'm like, but that's me. Oh, but no, but that's me. But that, and I'm like, but what? But they're all me.
so and this is beautiful, because if you do resonate with all, and I would say for women maybe that are just sort of recognizing this, they'll resonate with one more than the other. And then they
Yeah.
go through an awakening process, and they're like, oh, I actually have this one as well, and this one. But how I can say is those that are here to be the goddess incarnate, which is basically God consciousness in form, embodied, to be the speaker, the messenger, the lover, all of it in the physical flesh, they will have potentially, might go through all of those archetypal energies to become that, or accept the goddess in form as God consciousness. And then you can bypass the archetypes altogether. But it depends what your end goal is and what you're here to become embodied in. Some people will just become the embodiment of the priestess or the oracle, and they'll live that for however long. For me, it's to be God consciousness in form as
Yeah.
a goddess.
Same,
And
babe.
so that
Same.
means everything
Yeah.
has
I
been
hear
learned.
you. Yeah. Oh, there's so many places I could take this. I want to take this though. My heart is saying go here now. If you mentioned the word goddess,
Mhm.
we kind of tapped on God's order, God's law, or like we didn't. In my mind, I tapped into it when you were like working with God. I was like, hey, cool, we're on the same. So there's this like concept that I've been really like anchoring and holding and living in my body, and like it's a somatic experience of like I'm daughter of the king. So like when we try and get a king out there and we're like that's the king, it's like no, the king is God. God is a king. There's also the goddess who is us, and we're embodying that, right? So when we're plugging into like God is kid, God is king, then there's God's order in this kingdom that we're here to enact and enforce. And I believe Eden is a return, or this new earth is a return of the templates of perfection before the fucking fall, before the distortion. My whole body's like having all these experiences as I'm talking about it. So I would love to know the role. This is not where this question was going, but God's saying, say this. The role of the priestess, oracle, goddess incarnate in bringing back these Edenic templates. For me, in my understanding, it's that we are it. Like it's fucking encoded into us. We are the radiance of it. We're a living, breathing, walking nodal point. So then everything around us harmonizes, like when we're, communing with the land and we're talking to people and we're sharing. But I would love you to unpack that and like how the fuck does one be a living, breathing embodiment in God's order to like awaken Eden, and how do we do this and make money and survive, and like yeah, just what does that all mean and look like to you? Just a big loaded
Yeah.
I don't know where to go with,
Um,
but
I would say bringing back the origin point, so the original plan,
yeah.
and looking at the original divine templates of humanity, and which ones are we bringing each as individual. Because if we look at it through history, we could say that there was, the goddess of magic and the goddess of fertility and the god of the ether or the winds or the sun or whatever, right? So we've got all these different elements, which I like to just refer to as our individual snowflakes of God, right? Every single one is perfect, but we still hold a unique mastery or an element. And from what I've experienced through much channeling, past life memory, somatic unlocking, the technology of my body, is that we coded our form with what we're here to bring. And each DNA that activates and unlocks brings information to be brought back into the collective consciousness. That can be brought back through verbal, or it can be brought back just in sitting in presence. But the body itself has to go through the full unlocking of all the DNA strands to actually provide that online and to share that original template. Now, that comes with a lot of challenges, because a lot of us were a part of distorting those templates to begin with, and going back and taking accountability and ownership for where we might have created a massive fragmentation. Like, you know, some of the memories that I've had to go into is like, fuck me, I have to be accountable for this like distortion of, you know, the first splits of like masculine and feminine to light and dark through temple arts and the initiations that were taking place, and just like big consciousness splits that you know, like, okay, I have to own that's my fault, and I actually, if I created that, then I can reconcile it. And so for me, it's been going back to main fragmentation points, seeing what I needed to see and bringing it back together, and my body would unlock and provide the information and the collective awareness. And then as long as I've channeled it through as in the collective mind, as long as we see it, witness it, understand it, it then gets reintroduced into the one mind that we are all functioning from. And so that's why we have these, you know, collective remembrances, because one person will unlock something and then it ripples through. And we all hold like a different perspective to that template that then can reinstate the truth of what it is. So,
can I just
yes.
interject? Because there's something that I really want to fucking riff on here in what you said. When we were talking about how everything is this pathway back to God, even the shitty bad things, like part of my journey when you were like saying this, I was like, yes, fucking, I know that. Is having to correct distortions that I caused, like me as a soul. I caused those distortions, particularly in the earth grids. I had a lot of like draconian, reptilian, whatever fucking lifetime. Like we're done, doesn't matter. But a lot of inversions, distortions, infiltrations in the grid. But that means that now in this lifetime, I can correct that because I have the keys and I have the codes to switch everything, right? So I completely resonate with this, like, some of us are having to like clean up old old things, but it's like, don't hold yourself in the self-punishment for it for too long, because I definitely did that. And that, like, now my journey is like, fuck, I'm forgiven, like God has brought me back and I'm all good, like I've atoned, repented, whatever. I realized where I was doing shit that wasn't actually, like, it was not serving the higher, it was serving me, or it was ego based, or it was siphoning people, whatever that is. Don't keep yourself there beating yourself up about it, because at the end of the day, God knows your heart. God knows what you've done. God knows who you are. This is more of a message for someone that I just feel like I want to say it. There's someone on here still moving through that, and I was there, and it's like, as long as you correct yourself back to divine order, divine law, then everything that you have done and everything that you've been and everything that you've moved through will serve a higher order. But you need to like fucking humble yourself. Right? And be like, oh, okay, I didn't realize that in Egypt, a mystery school lineage, I was actually siphoning these men's sexual energy and not activating them. Or like I was using this temptress, seductress energy to like, I don't know, whatever. So I don't know, that felt really important to say. And yeah, and then I lost my trail of thought.
That's all right. The self, please interject at any point as well, but the self purgatory that is placed and contained around containing magic is like, we literally do so much sorcery on ourselves, so much to contain. And one of the things that almost always is like the fear of our power. We talk about that all the time, right? But recognizing, what are you really here for? What are you in devotion of? If you're here in devotion of God, you don't need to be afraid of your power, because you're fucking not going to do it again. I can tell you, you will not misuse your power. And if you do, you're going to see it straight away, and you're going to reconcile what's there, because you know you're here to be for love. So you're not going to step out of love. If you know you're here to be here in the pathway of purity, then that's the pathway you're going to walk. So seeing what each individual human is like, oh yeah, I'm here for this, then know that you're here for that. And recognize karma has actually gotten you to that point that you can hold that now. And you can step out of the karmic cycle. You don't have to pay for your sins over and over and over again. You have to go, I'm a sinner. Amazing. I'm going to do my best moment to moment to be in integrity with the word, be in integrity with my energy, be in integrity with the truth. And when I fuck up, I'm going to forgive myself, and I'm going to fix it and own it and take accountability and reconcile the timeline in the moment, rather than playing out these loops and cycles and Oh, journey that is infinite. You can sit in purgatory and self punishment and self containment and entrapment for so long, but it's not going to actually reconcile. You have to recognize I'm here for this and I'm stepping into it in truth.
Yeah, yeah, completely. I completely agree. A question, it kind of is like a side tangent. So we obviously, those of us walking this path, have a lot of stuff going on in a lot of different realms and a lot of different things. Like for me, I've figured out kind of how to human and how to like still balance like practical shit. And I know that I see you humaning in the world and, you know, like thriving. So is there any advice to someone walking this path and like how to balance this, like how to know that we're here to rebuild this whole system and create Eden and convene with the plants and God and nature and bring all this amazing stuff, but also pay our fucking bills and exist and like how do we balance this? Because I feel like there's a lot of people on this path, maybe not me, maybe not you, maybe not people listening to this, and I have done this in the past, but we can go too up and out of our bodies and up and like, God will solve this problem or whatever, that we don't actually take action. We're not here in our physical. We're very, I guess, bypassing the reality. So where's that balance? And specifically, I think an interesting place to find all this would be business and like finances and the grounded like day to day shit of how do we support ourselves? Because I know just from my memories as an oracle or a shaman or whatever, I never had to fucking support myself. I was supported. So it's like now I'm like, what? I need to fucking market myself. I need to like work. I need to show up. What? Why? What do you mean? What is this? I hate this. Right. So yeah, just I'm curious what your perception on all that is.
Yeah, it's, I think, one of the harder acknowledgements for remembrance and starting to remember the path and getting obsessed by it as well, and getting top heavy, getting out of body, going into all of the realms, continually seeking the highs. There's a lot of subconscious programs around material things being demonized, the physical reality. I want to go home. There's really some big core wounds that once you start to awaken, you're like, I don't want to be down here. And if you're not grounded, then you're unable to create the physical roots that you need to be a functioning human being. And often those high highs are smashed with low lows. You like balance out by going through the ascension descension pathways and meeting what you need, but it messes with the nervous system and the capacity to be focused and, you know, be quite human and here. So I would say there's a massive distortion around purpose and my path, and not seeing that you can't actually be on purpose if your human is messed up. You can't be on purpose and serve if you can't pay your rent and you can't feed yourself and you can't look after those basic human needs. Like, you got to go, well, if I'm really on purpose, then I would have somewhere to live that's fairly stable. I would be able to feed myself, even if it is week by week, coming in and cycling. Your basic human needs for that point of your journey are being met. And if you're not, you're bypassing something. You're completely denying an element of reality and truth. And often those initiations come with pretty hard hits and, you know, quite contrasting to go get in your fucking body, like, because you can't function from that. And, you know, whether that's psychosis or whether that's, you know, often sometimes physical violations and different, you know, abusive relationships, whatever it is, to bring someone back grounded into earth, it will happen because eventually, like if we look at it just from a frequency standpoint, if you have that much frequency and energy in your upper chakra systems and your circuitry, you're going to either have a seizure, you're going to end up with some kind of aneurysm, or your heart is not going to be able to function in your physical body any longer, your cortisol, all of that. It is a death sentence. Like, it really is. It's like, you need to be aware of mental, spiritual, physical, and emotional quadrants. And if I'm preferring one, your other one's going to be so far behind. Trust me, I've done this.
Mm.
I preferred my spiritual quadrant, even though I was hearing, like, you need to get massage, you need to do this, you need to do that. And I was like, oh, I don't have the money to invest in myself to get a massage every week at the time when I was in this realm. That to get me into my body and to balance out how much work I'd done in these other quadrants, I was taken through the 7 gates of hell for 6 months. It's like horrifically. And well, now you got to catch up because that's the only way you can actually balance out the cycle and close it. And that wasn't a path that I would suggest to anyone, but necessary. And if you're really committed to Dharma and purpose, then looking at the balance point, and you can do it simply in a pie graph or something, how much energy is going to my relationship? How much is going to my business, my health, my friends? Like, is there a balanced system, ecosystem in my consciousness? If not, then I got to bring some attention and focus to these other areas so I can stabilize what's happening in my field. And yeah, I think it's pretty devastating because when your nervous system gets to that point, you can't hold clients anyway. Your clients are taken away. You will stop resonating with people on social media. Like, all of those things are direct feedback loops of, um, some inner attunement that's required. So yeah, that's kind of from the disassociated element. In regards to walking the path of purpose, it happens in stages. The Dharma is all 7 chakras activated, cleared, purified, stabilized, and you are the 7 channels beyond human conditioning. So Dharma is big work and a lot of work and a lot of inner focus. That's why we had temples. That's why we had support systems. That's why that existed. And most of us are trying to get on a dharmic path, living in a mainstream reality. And so I guess each chakra is showing a different experience to see what we need to. And our life is the temple. And it's like, that's how we're getting initiated because there isn't really any modern day support. And that's where the purity of Isis burst because I had, thankfully, I knew that I would always have enough to survive, to feed, I just knew that. But I spent, like, for a big period of 18 months, bathing 4 times a week and being in the bath for 2 hours, crying, sleeping, getting on in my time off to share some kind of amazing channel to help bring in enough food and attraction through healing, canceling clients because my nervous system wasn't any good, and just like managing the best that I could to do it as quickly as possible. But that also meant that I had to give up my mother rights in this physical reality. I had all 4 children ripped away from me and did it through, I guess, abstinence of human need, like in a lot of ways. I didn't have partnership. I didn't have family. I didn't have community. I didn't have those things. And it was like, do it as quickly as possible so that you can reintroduce yourself back into society and your basic needs will be met. So I guess it's getting clear around how do I want to develop my purpose? Do I want to do it slowly and kind on my human? Or am I okay to sacrifice everything to step into it and spend however many hours, in process or channel or somatic unlocking, all of those things to get there?
Yeah, interesting. Wow, there's so much in there. Um, I don't even know where to go with this. There's just so much. I'm just trying to feel what would be the most serving in terms of like practicality, like
Hmm.
doing this work in the world in some way. Do you think in this moment, I'm just observing feedback and what I'm receiving from a lot of people around me doing this work, they're finding it harder. Like, people are kind of like going into a bit of fear around what's in the world. And it is like, and I'm always one of those people who's like, I create my fucking reality. I'm not going to pay attention to that shit, and I'm on a different timeline. So there is that, but there is this contraction happening kind of globally, and there are, a lot of people that I know are like they're in this pushback or their struggle in their purpose, and it's like I know I'm meant to do this, and I know I'm meant to be supported to do this, but it just feels like there's this squeeze happening. Do you have advice, or have you been seeing that? Have you been noticing in that how to adapt with the physical? I guess it's a collapse of our structure, and money at some point will stop ceasing to be the currency, but we're still in this phase.
Beautiful. So New Earth is a big part of my purpose. So I have a purpose that sits in a trinity where I would say New Earth is the focus, the energy of the goddess, and wealth. Wealth being currency, which is basically our nervous system holding our own frequency energy in life force or creator energy. Now, that focus for New Earth has, I guess, through my oracle, through visions, through understanding, has shown me that the very real reality is our world is radically declining, and it has to collapse to be reborn. So it has to die. And that means that there are going to be massive pockets of the earth that are going through dissension into death that we just spoke to earlier in this, to get to that 0 point that can return back to God and have that fresh, innocent, creative insight. That's going to happen from my awareness, through many channels. And I spoke a lot to what I call the end of days, consistently for quite a few years before. And it was really to speak to people like you and I, not to speak to the masses. It was like,
Yeah, my first book is the same. I talk about literally
yeah,
like the prophecy of like, guys, it's gonna fucking like really,
yeah,
it's gonna be pretty apocalyptic. Like, wake up. But now we're
yeah,
in it, and I'm like, I can't pay my fucking rent sometimes, and I'm like freaking out, like so.
yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah,
People are saying it's coming. And I'm like, no, it's came. We're here. We're in it right now.
yeah,
And that, that was there, a lot of us were sharing those messages to help prepare, I guess, leaders of the new earth to be able to be stable and have enough initiations that they're strong enough in their authority to go through what's happening.
yeah.
And then there's obviously the hierarchy of consciousness and awareness that some have not been aware of this, and it might be just coming into their field, and that can bring up a lot of fear and different concerns. The truth is that if you found out early, that was a part of your role and responsibility. If you're finding out now, then you're exactly where you need to be with what you need to know now. And you'll be able to find through, say, certain channels that have been hearing this information for so long, there's going to be very clear instructions and very clear support of these are the things that are going to happen. These are the things you need to think about. Here's the directive. Support yourself in these ways. Whilst also being guided by that inner authority to who do I listen to who do I connect with, to understanding that we don't all have to be leaders of this. Trust me, it's not that fun. Like,
Yeah. Yep.
it's really not. The pathway, like if we look at it just from a paved road, those people that have to clear the bushes and cut down that's hard manual labor. The ones that get to walk down the hike later, it's like,
I fucking wish I signed up.
oh, right?
I want to be one of those. Yeah.
Yeah. So there's a lot more ease, acceleration, and ability because there is a lot more awareness, knowing, tools, pathway, templates for this. But I think it's really accepting death and rebirth, and accepting that if we want the world to change, it has to die from its current expression of consciousness. And am I okay with death? And am I okay with watching the world collapse? Am I okay with perhaps being one that's in a place that doesn't collapse, and watching people in my direct field thrive and watching the rest of the world suffer? Like, what do I have to internally reconcile and come to terms with so that I can make aligned choices for my soul's purpose. And it's hard, right? You're looking at life and death and what's loving and what's not. And there's some really big concepts of the psyche that my path is the path of purity. The purity path in my lineage for the goddess and the priestess is what the purity of Isis is. It's purification. So everything I do is purifying the psyche, the mind, the body into that origin point of whatever it is for each individual. Now, because of the distortions of purity, which create these ideas that death is not pure. Well, I had to go through my own understanding through very hard acknowledgements and actions, and that sometimes compassion and the truth and God's message is the loss of things. So I always thought for the many years and the many channels that I was here to help save the world. And it was through this distortion of purity, reconciliation, coming to the truth, that I'm actually here to be a part of the end of the world.
Yeah, babe.
And that fucking sucked so
Yeah.
bad.
Yeah. God, I was getting the message recently, and I've spoken on this in the most recent podcast episodes to read the Bible, and that came with a lot of like shit for me, right? Like a lot of shit. I had to get over my shit to read it, and reading these things about God, like correcting things in some violent ways, and I had to accept that of like this is a correction, and whatever is needing to happen is going to happen, and it's not going to be fucking pretty, and it's not going to be glamorous. And it was interesting, there was something else you said in there, and I was like, I need to bring this up. You were saying about the thriving while people are dying and thriving while people are suffering. And I had this experience, it was really interesting on Monday, and I'm moving through this like I'm allowed to fucking thrive arc because I am thriving, and I'm noticing aspects of myself wanting to like contract because it's like, oh, don't want to be too orgasmic, don't want to feel too good, don't want to thrive too much, don't want to be too happy. But I had some sisters here the other night, and we were just hanging out, and one of them was going through a lot of stuff. We'd smoked, I don't smoke often, but we smoked a tiny little bit of a joint. I had like one puff. It's always like an ayahuasca journey for me when I smoke anything because it's like I'm so sensitive. But anyway, I'm having full body orgasms, which is very normal for me. But I was like fully fucking orgasmic. I'm in the kitchen, like making food, just orgasming and dancing, and I'm full of joy. And something in my brain goes, tone it down. You can't be feeling that good when she's suffering. Like they're gonna see you in here orgasming and having a great time, and they're gonna be like, "What the fuck is so inappropriate?" Like she's like, "You got to tone it down." I was like, "What? That's ridiculous!" Like it's so stupid that we have this so fucking encoded in us. Like can't radiate too much, can't feel too good, can't be orgasming with two of my best friends outside because they might, like because they don't feel that good. And it was just I went through this realization, and I was like, fuck that shit. Because me being in my joy, me being in my bliss, it doesn't matter what state they're in, it can uplift them. Like, it's not helpful for me to go down with her and be like, everything you're fucking going through, I'm going to go there with you. Because that's how I used to support people of like, I'm going to be there with you. But now it's like, no, I'm going to fucking orgasm and be joyful. And while you're telling me all this horrible shit that's going on for you, I'm going to just hold this field of like pleasure and joy and expansion, and I'm good. And I don't need to contract. And so it's interesting because I think, particularly for women, there is this guilt around being the fully expressed goddess, like fully thriving, thriving, being fucking in our power, being loved, being seen, being powerful, being wealthy, being fucking turned on, being wet, like thinking we're beautiful, like knowing we're beautiful, knowing we're like the daughter of the king, right? Like owning that is like, oh, there's so much shit. And then we want to like fucking block ourselves in so many ways because what would I be? Who would I be? How would people hate me or project onto me if I was fully to claim all of that? Anyway, that's my rant. And I'm like fucking done. This Aries season is like any last remnants of that? Goodbye. See you. I'm going to orgasm in my kitchen by myself. I don't give a fuck. Right. But yeah, it is interesting because we are going to have to look at a lot of hardship in the world and be compassionate and loving and not like rubbing it in people's faces. But how do you know you're here to anchor Eden? You're here to like really be in this heaven on earth. And I've been walking around in it, even though some of the external shit is like everywhere. I feel it in me. I feel this like I'm like on ayahuasca all the time. It's like magical, right? Experience while seeing people panicking and seeing gas is like $3 and all this shit, right? Like, I don't know. Yeah. I'm gonna just take a breath.
I think a good, because it is something that's spoken about a bit in these kind of realms of awareness, and whether you call it conspiracy theories, which are not so, they're losing that label anymore.
Yeah.
But it's the theory of the split consciousness or the
Yeah.
two reality
Yeah.
world. And I see that in my day-to-day life. I already see that I'm sitting in one reality. My daughter sits
Yeah.
in a completely different reality, and other people in my field, different reality. And what I feel is the same to what I feel that you came to terms with, is like holding that is like being all of you and allowing yourself to be all of you. But what that actually does is, instead of dropping, which I've done so much of,
Yeah.
or I'm like, here, this is my reality, and I'll hold everyone up. And then I'm like,
Yes.
oh, I
Yeah.
can't
Yeah.
do anymore. And that, that's been my biggest human challenge, is trying to get people to come into my reality, because I guess there's been a belief my reality is better.
Yeah.
And why wouldn't you want to have this yummy orgasmicness? Well, some people actually want to hurt and be in pain, right? So that's actually the truth. People are like, why would you not choose God if you knew God? Well, the truth is, sometimes they don't want to. They actually want to die. They want to choose down there because of whatever that has for them. But for those that don't know how to choose, if you're not being fully your reality, or the presence of the goddess or God in form, or whatever that opportunity is, it doesn't give them a chance to choose, because they don't know what there is available.
Yeah.
It's like, if you're being fully that, they might, they might rise a little, or they might go, actually, something clicks, and I have enough awareness to go, this is not the truth, this belief or whatever it is. And there can be an epiphany, and go, I actually want to walk in that. That feels good. Let's
Hmm.
do that pathway. But it's only through having that integrity to show up fully in our power, our beauty, our information, our acknowledgement. And, I think the strongest word, I've heard you say it a few times, and it's been one that cycled for me a lot in the last few weeks, is inner authority. And
Yeah.
that inner authority to be my divine birthright as the daughter of the king, and to be the goddess in form. And that is the path that's actually providing, I guess, the opportunity. And then recognizing that in this moment, many are not choosing that.
Mm.
And can you accept that they're not walking your path, and your path isn't right, and your
Yeah.
path is one experience,
Yeah.
and everyone's got the right to sovereign experience.
Yeah. Yeah, it's beautiful, and just letting them have their experience, not having to change them is this that in itself is definitely an initiation. So, my love, is there anything else? I feel very complete, but is there anything else you feel compelled to share, say, do? I feel like we've just left everyone on a great empowering note of like, go be your fucking vibrant queen self. Um, if people would want to come find you, follow you, like check out Priestess of Isis, sorry, Mystery of Isis, Purity of
Purity
Isis.
of
We
Isis.
got there in the end. I was like, I know it has a P word and ISIS in it. Purity of ISIS. How would they do that, my love?
Yeah, beautiful. So you can find me on YouTube, Geeia Ariati, or on any of the social media platforms. Mostly Instagram is for conscious business consulting, and then I do a lot of channels and more multidimensional stuff through YouTube and Facebook. Each of my platforms is a little bit different. If you are feeling resonant to the priestess path, because that's mostly what we talked about in the mystery school of the purity of Isis, or the New Earthers mystery school, which is all around New Earth leadership and embodiment, you can find them links to that on my website. So it's just geeiaariati.com. And you can find all of my services there. There is discovery calls, and we've got 5 free initiations. So 3 transmissions of meeting your goddess, connecting to your divine feminine, moving through the codes, the frequencies, all of the yummy visioning, unlocking of those DNA. See if it's a part of your sacred knowing. Even if that's all it is that you receive, that's truly like the gift. There is a Q&A that's on the website as well, so you can understand what is the Priestess path a little bit more in a different perspective, and a masterclass there. So lots of beautiful free content to help educate, understand, unlock, and raise that frequency of that path. And yeah, basically I'm just really grateful to have this chat and to connect with you, because, you know, we've been talking, but we haven't really got a chance to drop in. So it's really nice to be in your energy, your presence, your devotional message, and yeah, to be a part of this collaboration.
Yeah, thanks for coming. Thanks for being here. Thanks for being on the same land. That's really fucking cool and would like to be continued. So yeah, thank you guys for tuning in to this episode. Excuse me. Don't panic, be positive, go radiate, fucking make some cool shit. I love you. And until the next time, beautiful souls. Thank you for listening to another episode of Cracked Open. Don't forget to hit subscribe and share with a friend if this episode has served you in any way. For more information about the work that I do, or to get in touch with me, read the show notes or head to beckmylonas.com. Until next time, beautiful soul.